Hello everybody, David Shuster here. Donald Trump's voters are about to get a rude awakening. Economists and financial experts say the policies Trump plans to impose on day one, including 25% tariffs on products in Mexico and Canada, are going to cause consumer prices to skyrocket.
We've been hearing that tariffs would be coming with a Trump administration.
I mean, it is not unexpected in a sense. It may be unexpected to Americans who thought Trump was going to lower their prices. Because if you voted for Trump because you thought he was going to bring grocery prices down, I have some very bad news for you. A lot of our produce comes from Mexico. 2/3 of the tomatoes that Americans purchase are from Mexico. 90% of the avocados that they purchase are from Mexico, just to mention two examples. So
when it comes to housing prices, much of the lumber, cement, and other construction materials come from Canada. So new homes and housing repairs in the United States will be even more expensive. For voters who are wanting vehicle prices to settle, well, cars, SUVs, and trucks made in the United States have countless components from Mexico and Canada. That means automobile prices will rise. Also, most U.S. manufacturing industries rely on metals and various inputs from Mexico and Canada. So all of those prices will go up as well. Donald Trump has threatened the massive tariffs as retaliation for the drug trafficking and illegal immigration going through Mexico and Canada. But former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers warns the tariffs would trigger an inflation shock, making everyday goods more expensive for Americans. And instead of easing financial burdens, the Trump tariff approach will sharply raise costs, hitting consumers where they feel it the most, in their wallets.
And the Trump program as outlined by the campaign: dump on the independence of the Fed, call for a weaker dollar, have massive tax cuts that expand the government deficit, impose supply shocks by tariffs that raise the price of imported goods and everything that competes with them, risk labor shortage by deporting millions of people from our country. Cumulatively, this is a more inflationary policy by far than what President Biden talked about and did in 2021. So if implemented, it will violate the Hippocratic Oath of first do no harm and will be damaging to our national economy, and I suspect very damaging to a president who authors and supports such policies.
There are some Trump surrogates and supporters who believe that Donald Trump is simply using the threat of tariffs as a negotiation tactic. In other words, by threatening a tariff war with China, Mexico, and Canada and coming across as a bit erratic and unstable, Donald Trump may be able to push those nations to a negotiation table and get concessions and deals that are favorable to the United States. But keep in mind, Donald Trump has promised to impose the tariffs on day one. He has also pledged on day one to start deportations of millions of migrant workers, as well as end the war in Ukraine. Those are some big, ambitious promises. And as any parent knows, when you warn your kids, they will be punished if they continue to misbehave, and then they keep misbehaving and you don't actually follow through with the punishment, you only embolden the kids' bad behavior and give them confidence that they can get away with more of it. It's the same principle with threats to impose tariffs. If Donald Trump cannot strike a trade deal or get immediate negotiation progress with China, Mexico, and Canada, and he does not impose the tariffs as punishment, he will only embolden those nations and make new trade deals more elusive. And again, Donald Trump has not given himself any wiggle room. He is promising tariffs on day one. He's not saying tariffs within a month of taking office or tariffs within his first 100 days. He's saying tariffs immediately, as in China, Mexico, and Canada need to agree to a deal immediately. Most economic and trade experts believe that even a negotiation framework takes months. So if a deal does not emerge quickly and Donald Trump does not impose a punishment, our trade partners will know they can keep dragging their feet. On the flip side, if they drag their feet at the start and Trump immediately imposes tariffs, Trump will have immediately exhausted potential leverage in negotiations while simultaneously triggering inflation. One of Donald Trump's staunchest public supporters, CNBC's Joe Kernan, expressed concerns while interviewing another Donald Trump supporter, former Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Don't a lot of things have to go right for us not to reignite inflation and scare the bond market? Wouldn't you? I'm surprised the bond market it's very strange. The 10-year yield keeps going down because it's supposed to be at 5% by now from fear of Trump.
No, think of this. When he says to stop fentanyl, think what fentanyl is doing. It's the number one killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45.
Right.
But think about the ages between 18 and 45. It's the years you're most productive, the years you reproduce, and the years you serve in the military. It is the most critical time for a nation. So if this is the number one killer and he's stopping that before he even goes into office.
With the tariff. No one thought that with the tariff. And illegal
immigration. That's why you should look
yeah.
at it. Then he's stopping immigration. Will these even go into effect? No, if he's successful, they won't even go into effect. What the president is telling you, he's going to focus on America, but he's going to use every single tool he has in whatever negotiation you're talking about.
They are tools for negotiation, McCarthy says. The tariffs will not go into effect. So there it is again. Donald Trump is trying to frighten our trading partners in order to get them to cut down on illegal immigration and drugs crossing the border. Likewise, instead of deporting millions of migrant workers, maybe Donald Trump will only try to deport thousands so that the labor shortage is not as severe as expected. And perhaps instead of adding trillions of dollars to the federal deficit, which would increase U.S. borrowing costs and also trigger an economic crash, maybe the Trump deficit will be much smaller. At the moment, all we have is wishful thinking and the hope that Donald Trump is simply being bombastic and unstable in his policy announcements in order to increase his negotiating position. And if the Trump madman approach works, great. I'll be the first to salute Donald Trump if his threats produce remarkable deals and Trump never imposes the tariffs and other economic punishments. But let's be clear, Donald Trump is playing a very high-stakes game of chicken. And if nobody blinks, Trump will be crashing the U.S. economy through tariffs, sharply higher consumer costs, and steep inflation. Add to that the tax cuts Donald Trump and his fellow Republicans are planning, and the budget deficit will explode, hurting the U.S. economy even more. This is the reality of Donald Trump's ambitious day one plans. Trump supporters may have thought they were getting lower prices and a stronger border, but in fact, if Donald Trump does not thread the needle on day one, or U.S. neighbors see through Donald Trump, or China decides to test Trump, the result will be shockingly higher costs and financial instability for everybody. And instead of economic relief, American consumers will be looking at economic chaos. Perhaps America will get what it deserves under Donald Trump, but that could be really ugly, depressing, and dangerous from the start. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us. Become a Young Turk.